China is trying to divide the US and Europe on Ukraine. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is making an offer India could find hard to refuse. And is the US changing its Taiwan policy? Then more on this week's China News Headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by Surfshark. Whenever you go online, you really ought to be using a VPN like Surfshark to cover your tracks and protect your identity. I'll tell you more in a bit. And just a reminder to join Operation Honeypot by watching this episode to the end and leaving a like and a Honeypot comment below. U.S. President Donald Trump is making a lot of folks angry. The good news is, if you make enough people angry, you're bound to at least make some of the right people angry. Because a change to the State Department's website regarding Taiwan has sparked a fiery rebuke from Beijing. Previously on the State Department's U.S. relations with Taiwan fact sheet, it said, "We do not support Taiwan independence." That line has been removed. Does that mean the U.S. now supports Taiwan independence? Who knows? Certainly not Beijing. At a regular press conference on Monday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun urged the U.S. to immediately correct its mistakes or risk further damage to Sino-U.S. relations, and said the U.S. should act with the utmost caution. Yes, I'm sure King Donald Trump is worried about potentially upsetting people with wild things posted to a website. In response, the State Department claimed that the update to the website is routine and pointed out that the U.S. One China policy is still mentioned there. The spokesperson for the department has clarified that it doesn't support any unilateral changes to the status quo from any side, which also now appears on the fact sheet. This isn't the first time this has happened. In fact, that line was also cut back in 2022. Although it was added back a month later. Will this change hang around this time? Only time will tell. But Taiwan is considering a multi-billion-dollar arms purchase from the U.S. The talks are ongoing, but three sources said on Monday that the package would include coastal defense cruise missiles and HIMARS, with one source saying, "I would be very surprised if it was less than $8 billion, somewhere between $7 billion to $10 billion. The U.S. might want to send Guo Jiakun an edible arrangement as a thank you, because his tirade was the best sales pitch possible to make Taiwan want to buy a bunch of U.S. weapons. The package is intended to demonstrate the U.S.'s commitment to defending the island, especially after National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said he wished to speed up arms deliveries to Taipei. HIMARS in particular has proven to be effective in Ukraine against Russian forces, and Taiwan, like the CCP, has closely been observing that war to see what works and what doesn't. But Taiwan isn't the only Asian country looking for U.S. weapons to defend against China. President Trump and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi are discussing a trade route through Israel, along with a boost in arms sales to India. So I guess Trump should maybe send Guo two edible arrangements. The proposed trade route would run from India through the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel to Europe, basically circumventing the CCP's Belt and Road Initiative. This plan builds on one initiated by former President Biden in 2023. In addition, Modi and Trump discussed an expansion of U.S. military sales to India starting in 2025. India wants to modernize its military, and since 2008, the country has agreed to buy more than $20 billion in U.S. weapons. But these talks would expand on that. Trump also said that the U.S. would eventually provide India with F-35 stealth fighter jets, although he didn't exactly say when. Looks like BRICS might have some upcoming trouble with internal cohesion and partnership. But Trump has even more to offer India, like mediation to ease India-China tensions. In 2020, Trump offered his help in mediating India's border disputes with China. And during his joint press briefing with Modi, Trump restated the offer.
I look at India, I do see the skirmishes on the border, which are quite vicious, and I guess they continue to go on. If I could be of help, I'd love to help, because that should be stopped. That's been going on for a long time.
Why is Trump so confident he'd be a good mediator? I mean, what does he know about the art of the deal? Modi himself didn't react to the offer, but the Indian Foreign Secretary, in a later press briefing, rejected the offer. He said the issue was a bilateral one between Beijing and New Delhi. It's a shame. I think Trump could have gotten a golden toilet thrown into the deal. China is set to build its first deep water station under the sea. Yes, under the sea, that's as much as I can do before Disney hits us with a copyright claim. The facility is expected to become operational by 2030 and will be housed in the South China Sea, which I'm sure has nothing to do with cementing the CCP's illegal claims to the area. This would be like me building a treehouse on my neighbor's property and yelling, "Get off my lawn, invader!" The station will focus on researching the deep sea and exploration for methane hydrates and other energy resources. No doubt they'll share the information with other countries in the region. This facility is meant to make China look like a major scientific power when it comes to deep sea research, particularly compared to the US and Russia, because while artificial intelligence can help with this facility, it's also meant to sustain teams of scientists for several weeks. Fortunately, the scientists already have lots of experience being locked in claustrophobic conditions for weeks on end. And after the break, just what is China's position on Ukraine? Welcome back. China is sending mixed signals regarding the war in Ukraine. In the past, China has offered to be a mediator in the conflict. And last week, according to anonymous sources cited by the Wall Street Journal, they made the offer again, trying to play the role of peacemaker in Ukraine. The Wall Street Journal reports that part of the proposal involves Beijing acting as a guarantor by sending peacekeeping troops to the region. The White House didn't say if they had received such an offer, but rejected it out of hand, possibly because any mediation done by China would completely exclude Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, although some say Trump is kind of doing that already. And Europe also expressed skepticism, citing China's aid to Russia during the war. China's desire to get involved in Ukraine might have something to do with the country's mineral wealth. According to the national interest, the combination of Russia's military presence in Ukraine and China's economic might give China, Russia, and North Korea a window of opportunity to exploit the minerals with far-reaching implications for global security and global power dynamics. And anyone who has a problem with it, Russia's going to toss them right out that window of opportunity. So last week, China said it wants to be involved in the peace negotiations. But then, earlier this week, Beijing responded to a U.S. proposal for Chinese peacekeepers in Ukraine with the resounding no comment. In response to the proposal, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun, he's had a busy week, said, "We don't comment on a hypothetical question. China always upholds a just position on the issue of the Ukraine crisis, and we've made this very clear on multiple occasions." I couldn't agree more. China has made its position very clear, but not just. It seems clear that all of this is part of some kind of grand game between Chinese leader Xi Jinping and U.S. President Donald Trump. But what are the plays? That's unclear. Some say China is seeking to exploit the growing U.S.-Europe divide amid Trump's foreign policy shifts. After all, at the Munich Security Conference recently, where the new U.S. administration clashed with European leaders, China tried presenting itself as a stable and cooperative partner, despite being about as stable as a house of cards on a seesaw. Perhaps China hopes that by stepping into a European conflict, they can make the deal that will reduce or even remove European and U.S. tariffs. Some analysts even suggest that China could exploit gaps in U.S.-EU coordination on economic policies, making it easier for Beijing to navigate Western trade restrictions. Which is stupid because China isn't going to dump loads of money into EU security. China is not going to step in and fund all the things the U.S. used to fund. They're actually strategic about how they use their foreign investments. Now, I have a video I want to show you that you're going to love, but first, did you know that anytime you go online, everything you do is potentially compromised? And that's why the people at Surfshark created a VPN that keeps your internet activity private and secure. If you're not taking active steps to protect yourself, everything you do is being tracked and logged by the websites you visit, your internet service provider, and often by your own government. Using a VPN makes you harder to track. Surfshark has servers you can connect to in over 100 countries, more than any other VPN. That includes a server in the British Virgin Islands, where the law allows companies to not log user data. In fact, PC Mag rated Surfshark Editor's Choice for the best VPN for privacy and security. So check out Surfshark. With just one Surfshark account, you can connect as many devices as you want. It also comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So try out Surfshark risk-free. Go to surfshark.com/uncensored to get up to 4 months extra. That's surfshark.com/uncensored. The link is in the description below. And here's that video I wanted to show you. It's about Xi Jinping's out-of-control paranoia and the fact that he is rapidly building new prisons for his opponents. It's a premium episode on my new website, ChinaUncensored.tv. Check it out. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.